friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's fantastic. Everything here is good. It was a nice day yesterday, and I got to work outside a little bit. Like, by that I mean sitting on the porch doing my work. And I got to come down here a little bit before we had a little 8th grade recognition party for my youngest. And I got to start thinking about how I'm going to put this bench together. And the sad truth of the matter is, it's just a bad design. I really didn't think this through very well. I thought I did. I thought I had some really good ideas. I thought that I was going to try some new techniques and learn some new skills. I did some of that here. You know, this is the upper stretcher frame. I think I've shown this before on camera, but you know, I did some half-lap dovetails. This part of the bench is pretty cool, and it's actually pretty square just naturally. There are some gaps that need filling, so when I glue this, I'm going to use epoxy. The problem is, well, there's twofold. The design is a problem, and the second thing is I should have trued all of this wood up, including this. I should have cut the rounded edges off. I should have jointed these boards and planed them to a uniform thickness. The same with the base pieces. I should have trued it up. That would have helped a lot. Because especially those base pieces, they're 4x4 posts. This is all Douglas fir. And none of this, you know, is flat and straight. So it's all a little bit twisted, and I'm having to kind of force things back together. Which also means that none of the joinery, besides this hand-cut stuff, these all turned out pretty good. The joinery on the legs, the mortise and tenons turned out okay. You know, using some epoxy or Gorilla Glue or something that's gap-filling will fix that problem. The problem is the joint where this meets the base. I wanted, for some reason, I thought it would be great to have these stretchers sitting on the legs as opposed to being attached to the legs. The bench behind me, I don't think you can see that, but I just have face bolted the stretchers into the legs. And so that means any of the weight transference is actually going through those bolts, not directly through the leg. So I thought it would be really nice to have these upper stretchers sitting on the legs. So I cut these shelves, these rabbets. I cut them with the table saw. Great. The other thought process was, when you look at this, I wanted the long stretchers to be inset. So not on the outside. Here I have them on the outside. I wanted them to be inset because it's a really narrow top. This top is only 25 inches wide, and it'll be about 26 and a quarter or so once I add the trim pieces. I want an overhang for clamping. I want to be able to clamp to it. So I would have either had to make the base really narrow, which isn't great, or inset these. So I chose to keep the base as wide as I possibly could. The base is 25 inches wide, and that means I inset this top stretcher so that I can get clamps in there. So all that meant I had to cut these rabbets for this to sit on. Those cuts didn't come out great. I did them on the table saw. I used a real simple jig that I made. What do you call this thing? Tenoning jig. So this goes over my fence and I slide it down. The problem is, because those aren't flat and straight, because they were also like 30 inches long, they kind of racked some, so none of the cuts are square and straight, which is a complete nightmare figuring out how to get this all to go together. And it also means there's huge gaps in some parts. Like, it's not sitting flat and even all the way around. On top of all of that, because of the geometry of where this sits, there's nothing, this thing racks, like, it's not going to be a very solid bench. And that sucks. But yesterday I came down here, I was going to glue this together, but then I realized I do want to have one little special feature. That was this board that I took off. I'm going to cut a notch here. I have it marked. I just need to put the dado blade in the saw and cut it. I'm gonna have like a slide out shelf. Like, have you ever seen a cookbook shelf in a kitchen where you got this thing slide out? I'm gonna have a slide out shelf for tools or notebooks or whatever to sit while I'm working, so they're not on the work surface. I think that's a cool feature to add. So I need to do that. Then I can glue this together. Um, Ultimately, I talked to some guys on David Picciuto's Make Something's Discord channel, and we decided, I think I'm going to use Total Boat Thixo. It's a real thick, fast-setting epoxy to glue this all together. These I'm going to glue with just regular, like, 10-minute epoxy. But the rest will get glued with Thixo. That means these joints that are all kinds of wonky will get glued in with Thixo. And the mortise and tenons will get glued with Thixo, and then all of these half-blind or half-lapped dovetails will have a through dowel. I bought a whole bunch of dowels that will lock the bottom part in. I'm also going to add in each corner here, in each of these corners, I'm going to add. I have 6-inch lag bolts that'll go down through this and into the leg, and then I'm going to dowel these in from the front to try to prevent some of that racking. Ultimately, I think the bench is going to be a little bit wobbly. That's okay for right now. This bench is a little bit wobbly. Even, well, it's got wheels, but it isn't very, it racks a lot. Hopefully, with the combination of the Thixo filling all the gaps, the dowels, the bolts, I won't have any visible joinery, thankfully, but hopefully with a combination of all that, it'll be sturdy enough to work on. It's going to be sturdy enough to do jobs on. Whether I'm going to be able to hammer on it and stuff or really tweak on it, I don't know. But the eventual plan anyway is to build a cabinet of drawers in there, and I think that will stiffen the whole thing up enough that it'll be a usable workbench. I do have casters for it, feet for it. I need to put the feet on the bottom, but I'm getting there. I went and bought a set of corner clamping thingies off of Amazon. I bought green ones just so they're different from the red ones that everybody has. These were kind of expensive. I bought a set of 4 of these, and it was like 90 bucks, and I don't know that I could recommend that. I think that they're only about 15 millimeters thick this way, which means they're not nearly as sturdy as the ones sold by Woodpeckers. Woodpeckers kind of made these popular on YouTube, but theirs are much beefier than these. These are kind of weak. They're not going to be useful for this situation. I think that because of how tight all these joints are, this will flex before this will flex, which is a problem. But I think these will be just fine for doing casework when I build the box to the workbench box or the tool. The drawers underneath that bench. These will come in really handy for that. I was hoping to use these on this so that I could clamp this up, but honestly, this is pretty darn square just from my hand-cut joinery. It's out a tiny bit. The whole bench is going to be out a lot overall, but this is actually pretty damn close to being a square. In fact, there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom of this joint and the bottom of this joint where the board is kicked out a little bit. And when I put clamps across that and across this, it almost completely straightened the thing. So I'm just going to leave it kind of in its natural resting state and then put it all together with a ton of Thixo and try to make it work. So that's the plan for this week, to try to get this wrapped up because I'm tired of looking at it. I started to work on the top. I've got some really cool material that M's dad found for me. It's like a plastic. It cuts super easy on the table saw. Nothing's going to stick to it. I'm really excited about that. And I was going to do the trim around the whole top this weekend, but I do not have enough poplar. The plan was to make it out of poplar, and I ran out. So I need to go get some before I can finish that. Lots of work to do. But we'll get there. What do you got going on this week? Anything exciting? Softball is over for us. We had a little recognition party last night for my kid. They were the only 8th grader on the team, so we've got a little bit of a break this week, which is unusual for us. So recently, it's been nonstop, like I mentioned last week. What do you got going on? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking and commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is raison d'etre. Okay. It's a noun, the core reason why something exists, its central purpose and mission in this world. When Jane's children went off to college for her raison d'etre, disappeared and she fell into a deep depression. Raison d'etre. R-A-I-S-O-N space D-E-T-R-E. I would be just fine, just okay, if we got rid of all the like super French words that we borrowed in this language. Some of them are okay, but stuff like that, there's just no thank you. Just say her reason for living.